what? Let's dive right into. See, I feel like we've had a run of Bay Area guys on the podcast. Your people, they keep coming on, man.
We have, and you know what? One thing about the Bay Area people is we're gonna let you know, we're from the Bay. You know what I'm saying? Like I watched your doc, and as soon as I watched your doc and saw you was from the Bay, I was like, I knew I loved that guy. I knew I loved that.
The crazy thing is, we didn't even have Bay music for the Bay part. We had some Snoop, which is
you did have Snoop for that.
I know. I wanted to get some Mac Dre, but it was hard to get it, and I don't know. You guys know how that whole production thing goes, but yeah, when you're from the Bay. Everyone always thinks of LA or Californians as like surfer kids from LA, or you're from San Diego. And like the Bay is like a completely different area, completely different state. And we want people to know that we're not from the surf towns or the other towns. We're from, the Golden Gate, baby.
You already know. So did you grow up big Niners, Giants, or A's, Raiders?
Niners, Giants. I was a West Bay kid. I was on the peninsula. So I grew up in Redwood City, actually, where the 49ers used to have their training camp back in the 80s. I actually learned how to ride my bike on the turf fields that they had, have a piece of the turf once they left. Like, I was a diehard 49ers fan. My dogs were Dwight and Montana.
Oh, wow.
Loved the 49ers. And it's kind of crazy that I actually got to play with the Patriots because, the organization, when I got there, felt in that upper echelon of like the Niners of the 80s or the Cowboys. So it was kind of like being on the Niners of the new day when I got to the Patriots.
That's a different experience than I had, like growing up a sports fan in the Bay. Like not a lot of winning. You know what I'm saying? You grew up a Niners and Giants fan, it's a lot of winning.
You grew up an
East Bay fan, bro. We had baseball a little bit, but it was no football wins at all.
I'm not even gonna lie though. I did jump ship when Jerry went to the Raiders, when Jerry Rice went to the Raiders, and we all loved Tim Brown when he used to tape his fingers. Rich Gannon over there slinging it with that sidearm throw. Like
Charlie Gardner. We had a good squad back then.
I loved watching the Raiders, and it was cool because the Raiders had that kind of pissed off. We're the Raiders. We're the bad boys, and like I love that. With old Al Davis in the sweatsuits, there was just like a big aura around the Raiders.
Now, Julian, this is always interesting to me because we all are friends with people who are diehard sports fans, right? And at some point, one of them will say something like, hey, even if my kid played for the Red Sox, like I'd still root for the Yankees or whatever. There's that sort of. Now, you were a big enough 49ers fan that your dogs were named after legendary 49ers. Obviously, once you're in the business and you're playing for a different organization, the fandom morphs in a lot of ways because you're rooting for you and your team. Has any of your 49er fandom come back since retiring?
Definitely. I mean, I always want to see the Niners do well. I'm on a 15-person high school text chain with all my guys from high school, and they talk 49ers all day. So, I'm engaged with 49er content. I go back home. I visit my parents a bunch. And it's funny that you said that because I thought you were going to go to, has any family member or friend said you couldn't play for a certain team? And the day I became a free agent in 2013, I was talking to my older brother and he goes, if you sign with the Cowboys, I can't root for you. I can't root for you. That's the one thing. We hated the Cowboys or the Packers. The Packers were knocking us out in that early round every year in the division round with Brett Favre back in those days before J.J. Stokes caught that one down the middle. But, I was a big Niners fan. Loved the Giants, San Francisco Giants, Barry Bonds. I watched all 500, 600, 700. The guy would see one pitch a week and be a dinger in Willie McCovey Cove. It was crazy.
Crazy. It was crazy. If you ever want to just look back at the most absurd statistics any individual had in any sport for any period of time, you just look at Bonds in 2001. Just look at his numbers in that or 102. Look at the intentional walks. He was having more
200, right?
He had 200.
He had his intentional walks. So he set the previous record, I'm pretty sure, was Ted Williams at like 50 intentional walks in a season. I'm ballparking, but it was somewhere around there. And I think one season he had, I don't know if it was 200, but it was right around there. I'm going to get the exact number. It's some ridiculous number when you think about that. So he had 120 intentional walks in a season. Now, keep in mind, nobody in the league right now is even walking 120 times overall at a time where, like, that's a huge emphasis, right, on base percentage. No one's walking 120 times. This dude was intentionally walked 120 times this season.
I remember they walked him in with the bases loaded once, didn't they?
Buck Showalter,
Buck Showalter.
I mean, it was something crazy. I mean, to watch Barry Bonds and it's funny because Matthew Slater, he's still a Patriot. I think he's going on year 15 as a special teamer, the gladiator captain of the New England Patriots. He's a big stat guy. So, you know, we'd be in the training room and we'd be going over all of Bonds' stats because, you know, guys would be throwing out, oh, what about this guy? I was like, no one comes close to Barry stats. I don't care what happened, whatever, this, that, the other. This guy has the most craziest – what do you have, 700 and 500 club. 700 homers, 500
bags.
Yeah. I mean, it's unreal to watch.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, in those 4 straight MVP years, it's just so ridiculous. His numbers across the board, like this guy. We could do all day. Like his OPS plus is in the mid 200s. Like, it's just he's 2.5 times better than the average major league player. Like his numbers they're absurd. They're all absurd.
You remember when he almost fought Jeff Kent?
Oh yeah!
Oh my gosh! Yes! Oh my gosh! Yes! Yeah.
Jeff Kent, Matt Williams, Benito Santiago.
Those are my. Matt Williams was my guy. I used to love, and Robbie Thompson. Like those are my guys growing up.
John Beck.
Rob Beck.
Yeah, man.
The hair. Yeah. I mean, those are some fun times. I loved baseball growing up, and I played a lot of baseball, and to be around, you know, the winning that I got to be around, not only with the 49ers, but with the Giants, the goddamn rally monkey. I still can't forget it. But yeah, it was good memories.
So which high school did you go to out there in the Bay?
I went to Woodside High School. So we're in Redwood City. And then I actually went to college in San Mateo. Shout out to the Bulldogs.
Nice.
JUCO for a year. And then I, went up to Kent. So, those were some of the funnest years of playing sports because those were the last time you got to play with guys that you were around and you were from in the same area, because once you go, when I went to Ohio, it was like, who is this guy? These guys are different, we're just different from the Bay.
We are different. And like the weather, like showing up just in the middle of like Akron, like what was that like going from, our nice weather in the Bay and then, playing football in Ohio?
It was tough, but I remember going out and it wasn't necessarily the cold that got me. I remember training before going to school. I had like a month and I was in like the best condition of my life. I wanted to go in and I wanted to turn heads because I was, a sophomore coming in from another school, going in to compete for the quarterback job. And I'd run every day in the Bay. I was at Woodside and I'd run and I'd do these sprints. And first day I went to Ohio, it was the first time I really experienced a little like humidity. I couldn't breathe. I mean, we were running. I was like, what the hell is this? There's no humidity in California. People don't realize it's like 85, but it feels like 60 because it's not hot. You're not sweating. It could be 95 degrees. Wear jeans. In Miami, it's like 70 degrees. I'm blowing shirts out. So it's the first time I experienced the humidity. And then, once you get into the winter ball, we didn't play much past Thanksgiving. We didn't go to bowl games as much, but it definitely was a little colder. But I mean, those things you get used to, especially out of a school that I was at. I mean, we didn't really use an indoor facility. We practice outside, and that actually shapes guys, and it gets guys used to playing outside in that cold, whether it's good or bad. And it's something we did when I went to New England as well. Like, that I think it kind of helped me to go and be able to play in the cold for the future, playing in Ohio. So, everything happens for a reason.
No doubt.
Well, Julian, your story is, many are very familiar with it, but just as a refresher, I mean, it's amazing. You talk about going to JUCO, then going to Kent State, where you played quarterback. You don't get a combine invite. You're drafted in the 7th round, and then you end up spending 12 seasons with the Patriots, winning 3 Super Bowls, winning a Super Bowl MVP. We know the way that the greatest quarterback of all time trusted you in the biggest moments. If you were going to sort of hone in on what was, I don't know if there's one thing, but let's say the thing that comes to mind first for the key for you throughout your journey, not being someone who is this highly heralded prospect, but what kept you going and got you to have the career that you ended up having, what would it be when you think about where that journey started and what you were able to accomplish?
It was definitely my self-confidence. Like, everyone always said, oh, this guy is going to go play on Sundays. This guy is going to go play on Saturdays, be a Division I player. I always thought, like, no, I was the best football player on the field anytime I stepped foot on the field. And I felt like that until I probably got to the league. And the only reason I didn't feel like it in the league is because I didn't know how to play the position. Once I learned the position and I worked hard towards that, then your confidence gets bigger and bigger. And how that confidence grew, it was through my preparation. My dad was a big practice guy. I mean, we were bringing the sack of balls and the bat to camping trips. We'd practice every day. If it was basketball season, I'd be going down the street with my right hand tied behind my back so I could work on my left. Football, we were doing drills in the street. And that all was a fundamental, example for me on how to prepare. And that kind of carried over throughout my whole career. Like, when I went to Kent, I would sit, on off days, and I would put up all these bags, and I'd hit my deep out, I'd hit my post, I'd hit my deep post, I'd hit my short out, and I would try to do it all like my dad used to make me do it. And I think that preparation develops self-confidence. And then when you're prepared for an opportunity, that good things usually happen. So I would say self-confidence was always my thing. That I always had.
When switching positions, when you're going from quarterback to receiver in the league, did it help having that experience of playing quarterback for so long? Like when it was time to switch over?
Yeah, there was definitely some things that helped, like coverage recognition, knowing pet peeves for quarterbacks coming flat to downhill on in cuts and out breaking routes, depths versus zone, spacing versus zone. Knowing that when it's man coverage, you don't necessarily have to get your depth. You just got to get open. Those things helped me as a receiver. But what didn't help me was, the lack of reps of running routes against guys. And that's what the toughest part for me was. And, I remember sitting with Scott O'Brien. He's a special teams guru, one of the godfathers of special teams. And he would always say every rep, regardless good or bad, is a bit of experience. Now, you got to remember all those reps and watch it and pair it with films. And that's kind of what I had to do. I had to get those reps and, working in the off season with Brady a bunch, taking practice in training camp, organized team activities, mini camps, all like it's balls versus wall. Like, I was going hard always just because I needed to get those reps. And then once I was able to let that click and I was able to gain that knowledge of, all right, well, I did this at the top of a route and he undercut me, but what if I do that against an out route and then he undercuts it's just putting things together. It's like learning how to dance because there's a partner. When someone's chasing you or covering you, whatever you do is going to affect what they do, and it takes time to learn that.
Did it take time to get used to getting hit when going over the middle?
I loved that always. I was always it's crazy. I can remember playing in I lived in a cul-de-sac, and I remember playing on the streets with my friends or my brother, and we would always do those throws where you're going across the middle and Ronnie Lott's going to light you up. You got to make the catch.
Yeah.
And I embraced that. And you got a lot more of those hits earlier in my career, but by the time I was out, there's probably 15, 20 catches that I would have been decapitated on. in the first 4 years of my 5 years of my career, because the league was changing the rules. So, I definitely embraced that, and I always liked that. I was never afraid of contact, and that was part of my game.
I also think about that with punt returners, because I mean, you return punts for a huge portion of your career, and I'm just like, gosh, man. Like, of course, this is someone who won't play football, like, and my mentality.
won't.
but I'm thinking as you're waiting for that, Ray Guy hang time punt to drop into your arms, and you just see everybody sprinting towards you. Like, what is that feeling like? Let's forget if you're going to fair catch it, okay? But let's say as it's coming to you, and I'm returning this one, and you also know there's a lot of people who, with a lot of heads of steam, coming right at you.
Well, what people don't realize is special teams plays are like the most prepared for play. So you can get a tendency on what direction the punter likes to punt with his offsets. So you can kind of figure that out. And then with the hang time, depending on what you have on the blocking scheme going with return, you can determine if, like, all right, this is feeling pretty high, I might have to make a quick move. And there's a lot of trust on your other players. So that there's so many things that are combined, and you have to have just a couple nuts missing in the top of the head, because it is a pretty crazy play. I mean, I remember there's like a year where I just wouldn't fair catch, even if the guy was on my lap, because that was my only opportunity to get the ball in my hands as an early player in the career. So I was like, if I'm getting a punt, I'm taking it, which, the coaches would always say, I'm not going to coach that out of you. Just don't fumble the ball. But you definitely have to be a little crazy. And with punt return, which is different than kickoff return, because kickoff return, there's waves of guys, which when I was playing, now it's changing with all the rules and the wedges and stuff. But with the punt return, you get one really wave. So the guys with side-to-side quickness or change of direction quickness, if you can break that wave, then you really only got to beat a punter. And so that was like one of my strengths was the side-to-side direction and change of direction. So it worked into my favor. And, I loved that play. That was like, it was a crazy play. But, I remember the first time I was in training camp and I didn't know how to catch punts. There's a whole technique. If the ball turns over with the right-footed punter, you play it on your right chest. If it doesn't, it's going to be short and die right with the right. And so I was still learning. And I remember it was I went to Kent State, and we probably have, 300 people in the crowd at our home game. So, I mean, we didn't have a lot of people. And then I roll up to my first training camp practice in New England, and like pre-practice, you got to catch punts. And there's 20,000 people. I'm sitting there nervous as hell, and I drop a couple, and they started booing and stuff. I'm like, oh man, what are we doing?
Oh, that's great. Man. That's hilarious, man.
Oh. You would think it would be more nerve wracking when you like know you got a fair catch, because you have to catch the, you know what I mean? Like, you got to catch the punt. Like that seems like it'd be a little more nerve wracking.
They can't hit you though. If you throw that hand up in the air, you almost. So you're kind of, if you're a savvy punt returner and you see a guy coming, you may take a hit, but you'll walk in, you'll give a late hand and try to get a hit so you get 15. Like, that's what savvy do. Like, I would try to do that all the time, where you try to get, because if they hit you, get in that zone, it's a penalty. So, once you're comfortable catching punts, which you don't catch punts with your hands, you catch them with your feet, depending on where the ball is. You know what I mean? You don't want to olay it, as they would say in baseball. You want that body in front of it. So, it was always just, if you have your feet there, you're going to be fine. And, the fair catch, they can't touch you. But I did get messed up one time at Atlanta. I broke my jaw because I came up and they hit me, and I did fair catch it. And they didn't, or I don't know if I fair caught it, but I broke my jaw. It came out here, boom. It was nuts.
I just need to ask this, because everybody, I'm sure, is starting to appreciate, if they didn't already, that Julian Edelman is okay with contact and is pretty tough. How many games did you miss because of the broken jaw?
Didn't miss any.
Yeah, that's what I thought the answer was going to be. That's what I thought. I was setting you up there, Julian. That is crazy, man. You're playing in an NFL game with a broken jaw. Is there any part of you that next week that's like, please don't hit anywhere around here?
Torto is a hell of a drug.
Yeah. Good point.
Torto is a hell of a drug.
I tell people that all the time, man.
Hey, you got a sprained ankle, you got something. You're like, I don't know if I can do this. You take that Torto, you're like, oh, we're good. Let's go.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Hey, Julian, you have obviously, as we're seeing in the success of your media career and your new podcast, which we'll talk more about in a bit. You have a really, I think, magnetic personality, and we definitely felt that in your playing days. But there was also always the thought that under Bill Belichick, the Patriots liked to mute those personalities. We saw Tom, finally go on Howard Stern the second he leaves the Patriots, right, when he signs with the Bucs, and there's definitely a feeling of that. What was it actually like interacting with Bill for you, for a guy who does have an outgoing personality? What kind of guy is Bill behind the scenes, and what is it like for maybe people who, I don't know, maybe it's not natural for you to have to be conscious of staying in line?
Well, Bill is, through example, Bill just shows you pure intensity and pure hard work. He's always working. He's always doing something. So when you're a young player, you're terrified of talking with him, because you haven't made plays. He's going to remind everyone who's young, you haven't made a play in the goddamn NFL. This isn't Kentucky. This isn't LSU. This isn't Louisiana Lafayette Tech of the North. This is the National Football League, and everyone knows how to play, and you haven't made a play here yet. That's the kind of stuff he tells you from day one. So there's already an instant like, oh, I'm kind of scared of this guy, because also of what he does around the team. I mean, when I was there, he traded like Randy Moss week 2, because there was some stuff, and no one was bigger than the team, and everyone was held accountable, and once you start making plays and once you start contributing, but also keeping it business, Bill will crack a joke with you. It's just going to be a real big deep jab. Look at him. And I've seen 1,500 players. You think he's seen, and he has a photographic memory where he'll throw out a play from the Giants Niners game. I seen LT knock this guy out. What do you think? You think you could do it? I'm like, nah. You know what I mean? Because he's just a library of knowledge, and he works his ass off. So, he gets a bad stigma sometimes with how he is with players. But you make plays, and you're not a problem. He's going to have fun with you, and that's how it was. You just got to make some plays and gain some courage enough to be able to do that around him. I mean, I think it took me 7 years, but it was good after that.
But is that the culture just around the Patriots in general, just because of all the winning and everybody of all of the division championships and the back-to-backs and all of that stuff? Is that what you feel when you walking through the doors in that facility?
When you walk in the door, you see, when I walked into the door for the first time, I saw 3 Lombardi trophies. You see Tom Brady's in there, in March. You see the leader, a 3-time Super Bowl winning championship quarterback, they're early. You see, the Junior Seau's that are working hard, the Teddy Bruschi's that are working hard. These guys that had these unbelievable careers up to that point that are still working their nuts off. So, if you don't fit in, you don't get in. And if that's kind of how it is. And I remember, you'd walk by, and I was, the rookies kind of stayed together. We were all we had our own little locker area, and you'd be kind of loud with the rookies. You wouldn't talk to a vet because, they'll put you in your place. And, someone's joking around, and I think you hear Bruschi scream out hey, rookies, don't be heard, be seen. Everyone just shuts up, and that's how it was, in those days. And it's Teddy Bruschi, a man who, he had a interception in the Snow Bowl against, the Raiders. He's made crazy plays, and they remind you that with all the memorabilia, like the pictures of important plays of the teams in the past. And once you walk in there, it's like there's no dicking around. This is a job, and there's a standard. And if you don't hold that standard, you see people just in and out, in and out, in and out. And that's how it was for, my part of my career there, my whole career there. I mean, I played in the receiver room. I think there was 175 different receivers in the room my 12 years.
Dang.
Wow. Jeez.
That's crazy. That's what it's like that's what it was like when I first got to the Yankees, but it was because of the core four. It was because of Derek and Andy and Mo and Posada and what they had already accomplished and how hard they still worked. It was amazing to me to see where these guys were in their careers and like how hard it inspired all of us. You know what I mean? It was just, this is what we're going to do. This is how you have to win. These guys are leading by example, and if whatever they're doing, we have to follow them.
And that's the key to the whole Patriot way. It's your best players working their tails off, doing the extra stuff, doing the little things, being attentive, not believing the hype, ignoring noise, managing expectations. All those things by the best players on the team have to do that. And if you're 53 on the team and you think that you're going to just slop it around and you see those guys, like, you're not going to be there. So you instantly have to get there just to fit in. And that's everyone wants to talk about the Patriot way. That's what it was with the Vrabels, the Brewskis, the Kevin Falks, the Troy Browns, like all the guys from before. They were always having this work ethic, this accountability factor, trying to get the edge. That was always the thing. The more you can do, guys would always say that in the locker room. The more you can do, I'm getting the edge on you, Edelman. You ain't doing shit. I don't know if you can swear here.
Oh, no, this is, you can say whatever the fuck you want on this podcast.
Yeah.
Or, in the weight room, guys competing, practice, guys fighting. Like, that's what it was in the Patriots, because we ultimately knew if we went out there and iron sharpens iron. We worked our asses off in practice. It was going to make the games the easiest thing.
That's awesome. That is a great visual that you're painting. Julian, how about Tom adjusting to retirement? Have you shown him the ropes? How's he doing since being officially retired this time?
Is he officially retired?
I don't know. People still thought you were coming back this year. So
yeah, they did.
Yeah. It's I've seen him at a couple shindigs.
Yeah,
it looks like he's having a good time. He's spending a lot of time with his family. I mean, I think he's doing all right. He, it's all sunshine and rainbows around people, but when you're by yourself and it's in your body clock, we all as athletes have body clocks. That's the hardest thing to adjust to. When you first retire is that body clock. Oh, it's May right now. We have mini camps in 2 weeks. I feel like I'm out of shape. What's going on? Like, that's what drives, guys insane that first year out of retirement. But, if anyone can compartmentalize and deal with retirement, like, that dude's the GOAT. So he's going to be fine. And I'm excited to see him on Fox or whatever he's doing. I'm sure he's got his hands in so many things. We talk here every once in a while, but he sounds like it, and he's looking like he's enjoying it.
Speaking of, hands in a lot of things and out in the entertainment world, you have the Games with Names podcast with Sam Morril, where you revisit iconic moments from the greatest sports games ever played. Launched it in August of 2022, produced by your production company, Edelman's Coast Productions and Super Digital. What, I mean, for you thus far on this journey, because what I love about it is, look, everybody's got a gosh damn podcast, as we know, right? So, like, you're even, you try and find a lane of specificity that can connect to people, right? Now, either that or, sometimes your personality is dynamic enough for your credentials, whatever. That can be it too. You have personality and credentials, but you're also saying, like, hey, this is something we really want to hone in on. what has stood out to you thus far about people you've talked to and specific memories that you guys have really been able to dive into?
It's kind of like did you hear about Bill Russell? His wife brought him a film from college or something a few weeks ago, or there was some story on it, and he went through the whole thing, and he was able to give his insight on every single play from like 60 years ago. I mean, and it's really cool to have that perspective from people that played in like the biggest games that we all loved in all sports. And then the different dynamic that we bring is we also have the fan there, which Sam Morril, he's a comic, stand-up comic out of New York. He's killing it right now. He just had launched his Netflix special. And to hear a guy like him when, you know, two athletes are kind of athleting out, and to see how he gets in, like, it's just a fun podcast where you get to get insight from people from the best games of all time that had an impact in those games. What are your guys' favorite games of all time? Like, what game would you like to see on Games with Names? CC, one that you played with, Ryan, one that you watched or you commentated, like, or you could eat whatever you watched. Like, what game would you like to see or hear?
It would be mine would be the Tuck Rule game, to be honest. Like,
really? Oh, yeah, because I guess,
growing up a Raider fan,
Raiders.
and like hearing Charles Woodson talk about it, or even like Tom Brady, like to hear them talk about that, like, because I fucking broke a TV that day. I was fucking hot, cuz that shit was crazy. So like that's the biggest game that comes to my mind that I think about.
And then Gruden leaves.
That's a good one.
Goes to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and then Gruden bounces, and then the next year we get to the Super Bowl and get blown out. Like, like that whole thing, like all of that. I would love to just pick everybody's brain that was a part of that.
The butterfly effect of the Tuck Rule. The
Raiders. My God.
Because but even those couple years, but the next year, Saragusa jumps on Rich Gannon's shoulder, messes his shoulder up, and then we're out. So like that was like 2 or 3 years where the Raiders could have won a Super Bowl, where it was the Tuck Rule, the Saragusa, and then we lost in the Super Bowl to Gruden. It was crazy.
I remember it.
And I'm saying we too. I'm like I'm one of those guys.
You're part of it when you're a kid.
Yeah, you are.
I think it's a game I was at as a fan. I was in college. I'm a Giants fan, Julian. So I think I would go with, not that it's a happy memory for, people in your neck of the woods football wise, but Super Bowl 42. Because, like, just obviously there's, that's a game that there's certainly been plenty of attention around. But I think about it in my fandom, and I knew it at the time, and it has reigned true. There probably will never be another game as a fan I'll ever experience that will have everything that game had and meant, as far as stakes, circumstances, the shock of victory, what was on the line. Like that game really is the game when I think about it, my football fandom.
Well, Ryan, it is the luckiest day of all days for you. You actually did Super Bowl 42. We had Eli, my favorite, Manning, with Teddy Bruschi talking about the old.
I got to go back 17. And check this out.
We got to check it out. We got to check it out.
Okay,
we gotta check it out.
Is that the helmet catch? Or that's the one? Okay,
that's the helmet catch.
I was at that Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I was at that.
And then in 11 there was the sideline cover 5 Mario Manningham catch where you had to put it in one spot and one spot only. And Eli, my favorite Manning, of course, put it there.
Mario Manningham. Remember that name? Jeez.
Well, remember there's that great soundbite from Belichick on the sideline going, "This is still a Knicks and Cruz game. This is a Knicks and Cruz game," because he was trying to take him out or whatever. And then the irony was the biggest catch of the game was this like one big play from Mario Manningham down the sideline. Yeah,
Hakeem
crazy.
Nicks. What about those names? Crazy.
Well, I thought Hakeem Nicks looked like he was on his way to being the greatest Giants receiver of all time. His first 4 years are unbelievable, and then, man, it makes me appreciate a career like yours even more, Julian. Like seeing what you did for as many seasons as you did. Yeah, because
you know the physicality of our sport is the ultimate equalizer. Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. Like everyone, like when you're 100%, the game is so fun. But the guys that learn how to adjust when they're not 100%, the Tom Brady's that. Yeah, people don't know Tom Brady had like a broken foot in like 13 and 14 or something. He didn't miss a game because he adjusted his game properly, and he found a way out to go out and perform at a high level. Like that is the craziest thing about football. Like if your body ain't there, your body's not feeling good, you know, you ain't going to win the race. It's like NASCAR. Those guys are trying to, hey, how's the car running this weekend? We got a slow car. We're going to see what we're going to do over here. You know, like that's what it is. It's the guys that can win when the car ain't running the fastest are the guys that can play consistently.
Well, Julian, we could talk to you all day, man. This is outstanding. Yeah. Congratulations on everything you have going on. Now I obviously am going to go back and listen to the Eli and Teddy Bruschi episode of the podcast with you and Sam, Games with Names podcast. I'm assuming people can get it wherever they want, right?
Anywhere. I just wait. How many do we have? Are those Nickelodeon Slime Time Awards back there? What are those? What are those back there?
That's exactly what they are right there.
Are we flexing out here? Yeah. Hey, you got a Jordan?
You know, we got so these are CC's cleats that he autographed for me. One for my third.
You see how he covers the cleats, but I see those slime.
What were you asking about over here? Yes, we got some autographed cleats from C.
That's great.
One of his 31st for my 31st birthday, and then one where he gave all his like friends a pair when he retired, with like all his accomplishments on it. So it says like 3,000 strikeouts and 250 wins, stuff like that. We're going to need to add HOF to that at some point in the next couple of years. Yeah. And then yes, those are Emmys for the work I do on the Yankees and Mets.
I'm sorry.
Yes, exactly.
Those
feel
are
real
cool.
too. They feel. It's funny. Sometimes my friends are like, "Oh, is this like?" Because like these are New York Emmys. There are national Emmys that I still have aspirations for. But yeah, they'll be like, they'll expect them to feel kind of like chintzy, and then they pick them up and they're like, "Whoa, wait, this is a real Emmy." I'm like, well, "Yeah, I'm not displaying a fake one." But yeah, they actually do a nice job with those trophies.
Shout out to the 4 Emmys over there.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
You know what?
CC, I'll give you my address. I'll take one of those Jordan cleats with all that stuff too.
Oh yeah, I got you, dog.
I'll send a jersey. You know, it's one of those.
We can do a swap. You already know.
I love it. Julian, thank you for all the time, man. Continued success. We know you just made a big move out west, so good luck with all of that, and continue killing it on the podcast and everything else you're involved in.
Appreciate it, guys. You guys take care.
Thanks, Julian.